Reef DVM's coming at you today again with a little bit on our quarantine tank and why people quarantine and why people don't quarantine. All I can say is I think less than 10% of our population of Aquarius even quarantine. Most people think the extra expense and maintenance required is not worth it, but we found that if you just set it up here and there when you want to replace a bunch of fish and run it for several weeks, the benefits outweigh the risks and the cost and the effort. Here's our quarantine tank. It's made by Synergy Reef. It sits right down by our sump. We have it on a piece of foam. It's just a transitory tank for a couple weeks here as we bring in a couple cardinals, a couple gobies, and another tang. We lost our yellow tang, so that's what kind of started this. I think anything between about 15 and 29 gallons suffices. Really you need some type of fluorescent lighting. You're going to need some type of heater, maybe some plastic plants or PVC tubes. A good filtration system or sponge works well. In our case, we're also using some live rock from our system. And, of course, I hate to say it, but we like to use a little bit of, ick disinfectant in the water too. So, it's not a perfect setup. We've got a little thermometer on it. We run the lights for about 6 hours a day when we use it. And it works good for our needs. It helps us to see if they're going to break with anything. It makes it easier too, because if one dies, it's easy to take out. We know it didn't get eaten by somebody else in the tank. If they do break with ick, we know they haven't contaminated the rest of the tank yet. If there is some fin rot, we can try working with it at this point because there's no inverts in this system. So it makes it easier. I would say when I get done, I normally take about a 2% Clorox bleach solution, and I just bleach everything in here. It's the easiest, it's the safest, and then I just kind of store it away in a closet again. Probably use this thing about maybe 3 times a year. Normally we run the system for about maybe a week before the fish come in, and then 14 days with the fish. And again, we use a little copper in the water. And we do probably a 10 to 15% water change basically once a week during those 2 weeks. And we run a little bit of a ammonia filter in the sock here. I think I can show you if I look over the top. Sorry for the lens cap. But in that bag there by that pump, there's just some ammonia adsorbent just to make sure that we don't make it toxic. We run an air stone just to make sure that we got a little bit of air in there along with the pump that's running. And again, we've got the live rock. It just works well. This setup pays off for us. I can't tell you how many times. It's saved livestock upstairs. It's saved us headache when things have come in and we thought they were healthy and they weren't. And certainly it's even helped with the acclimation process because we can start them in this tank with very little light. We don't have to blind them with 12 hours of bright lights on them right off the bat. There is not a whole community of fish for them to stress against. And, on top of it, everything in there has kind of been sterilized. And it's in a static state that we try to keep at the same specific gravity as the big tank and the same temperature as the big tank. And then when we bring them up top like we're doing here, we drop them in. They've been in the same salinity, pretty much the same water for 2 weeks. And now they get to meet, the other fish and the other tank inhabitants. And they're not quite as stressed as when we just drove them home from a vehicle, plopped a bag in the water, did some water changes into the bag, and then just dumped them in with a community of fish. Again, can't say enough about the reasons why to do this. We still get people that say they don't want to do it, and they get burned, or people are asking us for help because they've gotten burned. All I can say is I understand that daughter's here looking at the fish. All I can say is that less than probably 10% of aquarists do this. And I think for the cost of a maybe 29-gallon tank, a heater, an extra LED light, you're probably going to be out $150 and maybe a couple weeks of time, several times a year when you want to bring home a fish and do it right. So my take is have a QT tank, especially for bringing in new fish. You can kind of model it after our setup or create your own. I appreciate you watching, folks. Please like or subscribe and we'll keep putting out great videos like this.